Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Drive me crazy.
Is that the song?
No, that's a different song. This is the...
What's with the, what has got dots? What does it stand for?
The name of the five brothers.
Ah, fuck.
Christian,
Hi, everybody.
Anthony. Yeah, anyway. Hello, everyone. Or Antoine. Was that his name? Antoine. Not Anthony.
I didn't. They're French Canadians. I didn't pay attention to their names. I guess because they're French Canadian. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is David Bell.
It's espousing French Canadian hatred.
Yeah.
I'm Tom Ryman.
And we just watched C.R.A.Z.Y. Or rather, C.R.A.Z.Y. Period.
Regardez les enfants.
C'est votre frère. Oh, mon petit Jésus. Tiens.
Il est beau.
Je veux voir.
I don't like a title that makes me do work.
Oh, well, the movie spells it out for you.
What?
It never gets that... Well, no, actually it does. In the end credits, it literally spells it out for you.
The word crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it shows each letter and then separates them and does the name of each of the five brothers to show.
No, I just mean like I have to say it.
Oh,
like
right.
C.R.A.Z.Y.
Yeah, it took like twice as long to search. Well, maybe three times, because when you type it in numerals,
when you type in crazy,
you have to like keep switching over to the symbol keypad and then switching back to the letters, and then switching back to the symbols. It's
and if you just write crazy, it'll give you a bunch of movies that isn't this movie.
Right. You have to use the periods. They should have thought about that back in 2005 before any of this was a thing. They should have foreseen that it would be slightly irritating to search for on streaming platforms.
Yes, thank you. Also, thank you to Steven. Steven is our Patreon producer who asked us to watch this film, which wasn't available until recently, even though it's a 2005 film.
Yes.
It just wasn't available in the States, but it finally is. This is, like I alluded to, it is some kind of French-Canadian movie.
Some manner of French-Canadian film. But yes, thank you to Steven.
It's from, thank you, Steven. This is from the director of Dallas Buyers Club, if that means anything to you.
I've actually never saw it.
Oh, it's fine. Sure. I thought it was good. I remember liking it. But yeah, this is a coming of age drama comedy, French Canadian from 2005. What did you think of this film, Crazy, Tom?
I liked this movie.
That's good.
This is interesting. This is a movie that as the little bit of reading I did about it before we recorded, it was a big hit. It won all these awards. It's considered one of the best Canadian movies ever made. But this is a movie that probably never would have found its way to me. And not just because it hasn't been available to stream until recently, which, as I was reading, which may interest some listeners to know, the reason why it took so long to be available on streaming is because there's a lot of licensed music in this film. And if you know anything about
a whole
that...
lot.
It's the rights for licensed music, particularly as it extends to streaming or being on television, is a huge pain in the ass. So they finally got that all figured out. So now you can watch this on streaming platforms.
That's correct. And I think you could watch it in other countries first. So there was all sorts of the rights to music.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is specifically
an
American thing. I don't know how if they had got that squared away in other countries way before this, but in America, this was not available to watch until last year.
That's correct. It's now on, I believe, HBO Max.
Oh, is it? I rented it.
I rented it too, and I'm looking on IMDb, and it says watch on HBO Max, and I'm like, really? I didn't notice that. Doesn't matter. I thought this movie was okay. I have some issues with it. Mainly that I think there's a really good story in here that I think is weighed down heavily by what I will call boomer horse shit.
Sure.
Which is that I feel like I don't actually know if this was made by a boomer. I think I'm guessing it was because of the tone or written, where it's that this era of coming of age 70s stuff. I guess I'm just going to put it this way. They think this era is way more important than it was. Like, in the sense that, like, the 60s and 70s, and you know, I don't think this is just a boomer thing. I think we all feel this way.
Everyone feels like the decade in which they grew up is more important than it was.
Yes, but I think boomers have gotten that indulged way more. You know, we've still telling movies that take place in the 70s. You know what I mean? Where we've talked about this before, where it's like,
yeah, sure.
Are we going to move out of like?
Well, it's because they
Vietnam?
controlled the culture. You know, it was
Exactly.
all the movies for like 25 years are being made by people who were boomers, and then that
Right.
So now, like, consequently, now everybody our age cares about like all this stuff. I was going to grab an example and I couldn't think of one.
No, but you know what I mean. Where it's like
Scooby-Doo.
we've spent way too much time on the 70s as a culture. We can't get out of it, and I think it's created a situation where it's treated like this really important time to the point that this movie, I feel like, again, has a very good story in it, but then it meanders so much. And it thinks that it's really interesting to just like show people hanging out in the 70s. And I don't know how else to say it. It's just like, I'm not impressed by the 70s,
Sure.
by the existence, by the music of it. I'm just not. And I think this movie it's 2 hours and 9 minutes long. I think it could have been an hour 45.
Yeah, let's tell them what it's about. Okay, so it's about a French-Canadian family in French Canada. I think...
Yeah, that's it.
I think Quebec? I don't know. But anyway...
I don't know.
It's 5 brothers being raised by a mom and dad. And the title of the film, C.R.A.Z.Y, is C.R.A.Z.Y. That's the first initial of each of the 5 brothers. You have Christian, Raymond, Antoine, Zach, who is the main character, and the last brother, who's Ivan or I forget what his name is.
He's the youngest. He doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's barely in it. But the point is Zach is gay, and his dad is super not cool with that. So it's basically covers about 2.5 decades, or really a decade and a half, of Zach's life as he keeps trying to become the person that he's going to become, and his dad keeps getting in the way. And the movie deals with a lot of themes related to that, like the expectations that you foist upon your children, and how sometimes it can be hard to figure out what the line is between what your kid's actual personality is and the personality that you've decided for them.
Yes, there's a lot of them deciding that he's... Because, they mythologize the idea of, like, they always have boys. So he's just like, I just have so much testosterone. And then and then having to deal with the fact that one of the kids is gay, which is, like what they juxtapose that I really like, is one of the other kids is a fucking disaster. And they seem less concerned about that one. Yeah. Because he's not gay.
Because
and it's
he's not
like
gay, right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was talking about is like there's a version of this where it's like being gay in the 70s. I don't know from experience, but one imagines not fun. Not a fun time. Especially with a conservative family. Yeah. And that I think is the core of the story that's really good.
There's an interesting idea about black sheeps, because Zach and his brother Raymond are kind of the black sheeps of the family. Raymond, like we were mentioned, is just a full-on disaster. He's, meaning he's cool as shit.
He's so fucking cool.
He's so cool. He rides a motorcycle. He's got tattoos. He doesn't give a shit.
does heroin.
He does. He gets to heroin. Yeah, he starts small and graduates. He's having sex all the time. And then Zach is the black sheep and treated with like more disdain than Raymond because he keeps asking for quote unquote girly toys and wants to like wear his mother's pearls and stuff.
Right.
His dad's being a real shit to him.
Right. It's not even that like overt where like at first he just like wants to hold the baby and have a carriage. And it's like, that's gay to take care of a kid. You can't take care of that baby.
His dad like can't handle it.
Yeah. And like he like barely very little happens that is like concerning, like quote unquote concerning in the eyes of this conservative dad.
Right.
Like,
he's just ultra conservative.
This kid is just like I would argue he might be bi. Like it's hard. They don't really they don't talk about it. It doesn't really matter
too much into it. And he does have a girlfriend for a long time, but
but again, it's the idea of like in the 70s, just even a little bit of like being effeminate or like showing signs that you're gay. That goes a long way, especially in this family. Yeah. So it's like the dad is. I like that they make the dad very complex. You know, like we don't like him, but
he's also, you don't really dislike him. Like he's not a monster, which sounds weird to say.
The main character doesn't dislike him. Well, he never hits him. He never kicks him out. Even he doesn't do anything awful. He's just mad at him.
Yeah, he's just really upset that his son is gay and he doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and the son, like they set it up so that they're gonna reconcile it because the dad never crosses a line that you can't come back from.
Yeah,
is what it is, and then the dad is like otherwise he has very fond memories of his dad. They have nice moments and so on. It's about the idea that they fundamentally love each other, and so it's like. He has to push past this bigotry that is also just ingrained in him. Mm-hmm. And what happens when those two emotions kind of meet head on? And spoilers, it never really resolves. Like his dad is never really like, I'm proud of my gay son. Like it never goes there.
No, he never goes. Which his dad never gets woke.
Yeah, which is the realistic way that this would be. So it's more of just like these characters finding an understanding in the end where it's like, and my dad just kind of doesn't talk about it. And like, he's not mad about it, but he's, we agree to disagree.
Right. It's the theme that I had mentioned earlier, because it actually kind of goes both directions in this movie, but the main focus is that, whether or not you sort of decided your children's personalities and interests for them and whether you're going to get upset when they don't live up to that. Because like they very early on, like the mom is like, oh, each one of them is different. They all have their own things. And like super early on, like we're told that like the oldest brother, Christian, he's the smart one. He's the A kid. He wears glasses.
He's the boring one.
He's the boring one. Yeah. Raymond's the bad boy. Antoine's the athlete who farts all the time.
Raymond is cool but rude.
He is cool but rude.
Yeah.
And then Zach like doesn't seem to have a thing. And they do a couple of montages of his dad buying him different random gifts each Christmas because there's a subplot, kind of a minor subplot that goes around with the fact that Zach was born on Christmas Day. So his mom instills a bit of a Jesus complex in him. And that's a different version of kind of what his dad is doing. It seems like a more quote unquote positive version, but it's still bad for Zach because it puts a lot of expectation on him that he feels like he's got to live up to being literally Jesus.
She claims he can like heal and stuff like that.
Yeah, he claims he can heal.
And this partially goes into the boomer stuff that bugs me is like, for example, again, it's not any one large part. It's all these little moments that I'm like, you could cut that. Like where they start with him in the womb. That's such a self-indulgent, like, and I don't even know if this is a, like, a biography or I don't even know if it's based on anybody's life.
It was
Okay.
semi-autobiographical from the screenwriter, from what I've read.
All right, that's what I figured because that's some real indulgent, self-indulgent shit.
Yeah.
And the movie felt generally self-indulgent at times where it's like, we're going to start with me in the womb. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. Like the him dropping him as a young kid, and I know it all leads into parenthood and expectations.
Yeah.
But like, I don't need so many reminders. And like, there was just a lot of like,
Yeah.
I'm mythologizing my own story, and it really felt like a meandering story that an old person would tell you, where you're like, it takes like 20 minutes for him to get to the age where the stuff starts happening, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like that could have been less minutes. Like,
Yeah.
I think you could have showed his childhood a lot faster.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm going to circle around back to that, but just to finish the thought that I had,
for sure.
Finish the thought that I had earlier, his dad keeps buying him different things each Christmas / for his birthday that represent his own interests. Like he gets him a table hockey table. He gets him different instruments because his dad's really into music. Like he's trying to figure out what Zach's thing is because you're supposed to have a thing.
Right, and the argument is like, oh, he's trying to bond with you. And it's like, yeah, but he's not bonding with him on the things he likes.
On the things that he actually likes.
Yeah, it's the stuff the dad likes.
And then, the other side of that is what we were talking about, how, like you mentioned, we're just going to have to agree to disagree here. Like his dad is never going to get like fully accepting of it. Just because that's the person he is. So that's like the other side of expectation. But anyway, getting back to what you just said, I think I super enjoyed this movie. It's a good story. It's interesting filmmaking, but I do agree that it is redundant in a couple of scenes where it keeps, like, we see different versions of the same thing happen a few times, basically. So it's like, all right, like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, I think this needed an editor because I did enjoy this movie too, but my legs started twitching in some parts. I got to a point where I was like, when he fucking goes to Jerusalem, I'm like, come on, movie. Can we just wrap this up? Like, I got impatient with the movie because, again, it felt like I was being told a story that was like sort of going somewhere, but then would deviate to these nostalgic moments. And then the Jerusalem stuff, I understood it.
Yeah.
But it was just like, Jesus, it just got so coming of age boomer to me that like I see why this movie is, people love it and stuff. But I would also argue that the people reviewing it were older people too. And that's what I mean, is it all feels like there's just a level of 70s self-indulgence of like, isn't this time great? And I just didn't need that much. And I think the same could have been achieved shorter, ultimately. Because I did find myself kind of drifting away, like my attention in a few places. And part of it is because since it's redundant, I would drift away and then come back and I wouldn't have missed anything thematically.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, yeah, no, I see what the track is that we're going on. You know, we just spent so much fucking time with them as kids and them as teens, just sort of hanging out and stuff. And I just, like, it was stuff where, like, again, it's not one moment, like at the wedding, like there's people dancing and to that Louie Louie song that's already played. And they like stop and play the song again, and we watch them dance. And it's like, we don't have to watch them dance anymore.
Yeah,
it's okay. Like, it's shit like that, where it's like it really wanted us to like, this music is the best, and this time is the best, and it's like, all right.
Yeah, I got it. There's like two other full dance sequences. One where he's dancing alone in his room to Space Oddity, and then there's a church thing where it's Sympathy for the Devil.
Those were the parts that really like stuck out, where I was like, what are we doing? Like, just can the movie continue, please? Because it's not a musical. It's just like, we're all gonna stop and listen to David Bowie. And it's like, no, I like David Bowie songs too, but I'm watching a movie.
Yeah, I like all these songs. Yeah. I mean, and it's in the title too, because Crazy also refers to the Patsy Cline record. That's like his dad's favorite, and he breaks it because he's mad at his dad one day when he's a little kid, and then it becomes this recurring motif where...
Yeah, you're sort of waiting for when is he going to find the record and bring... Because it's a rare album. And so you're sort of... Like, they have a scene where he goes into a record store to look for it, and you kind of know, like, oh, he's going to find it eventually, right?
Yeah. And he finds it in Jerusalem, and he brings it back.
Yeah.
And his younger brother ends up breaking it by accident. And I think...
which was cute. I like that.
Yeah, and it's sort of... I think it's maybe intended to be a metaphor for the family and that circle of expectation versus reality being broken, because it's meant to stay broken.
It's almost the idea they have 5 kids, which that wasn't unheard of in this time.
But also, I think this movie makes a strong argument for why you shouldn't have that many kids.
Yeah, because I think the idea is it's almost like every time it's like they're rolling dice and they're not happy with the result. And so they keep doing it. And so the idea of the younger brother is like, well, that'll be the one that he likes. And then he breaks the album too. And it's like, oh yeah, nobody's perfect, like kids are going to fuck up.
Well, and it's also like when you have that many kids, it's almost like you need to assign them like a shorthand personality niche just for yourself. So you can kind of keep track of them and their interests. And that's not helpful for the kids.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've said this before. I have on my mom's side, nine uncles and aunts, or well, 8, and then my mom. And so I just remember my grandparents, when they would sit down to talk to me, they'd Rolodex names. They'd like sit down and go, Paul, Steven, Dave, how are you? Like, because they had to there was so many cousins and shit. And after a while, it's just like, yeah, it becomes a social clique. Like, it's not a family. It's like it's like a small, it's like a workplace, Yeah. And so like big families, they give a lot, but yeah, there's a certain amount of like, it suddenly you like small families, I feel like are just, they don't have that weird social aspect to them where it's like there's cliques within the family and stuff like that. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird shit. And this movie definitely plays with that, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's it's definitely there. It's not like a primary theme, but it's definitely like mixed in there, I think.
Yeah. I agree. It's yeah, I don't know. It doesn't spend a lot of time on too many of the brothers. Again, the egghead brother, and then the jock one with the buzz cut. I kept forgetting he existed.
It's like that with most of them. It's really the only ones you need to keep track of are Zach and Raymond.
Right, and they do a fun thing because as we talked about, or as you mentioned, black sheep, and they're both the black sheep, and they both hate each other.
Yeah,
and I was fully expecting some sort of like I was expecting them to eventually team up. Because of their status, but it never really happens. They have a couple of moments where they sort of kind of see eye to eye, but usually it's not. They never quite reconcile. No.
And then of course Raymond dies.
Yeah. And it's almost the idea that it's like because the dad has this moment where he sits down and he's like, I know I did something wrong. And he can't figure out what. And I really liked that because it reminds me of what it means to be a bigot, which is that you cause a lot of people harm in your life being a bigot, obviously. Like the biggest concern of someone who's racist or homophobic, you don't feel bad for that person as much as you feel bad for the people that they affect, and as it should be. But the reminder is that those people are also miserable because there's something in life that they can't reconcile. The world doesn't quite make sense to them. And the reason why is because they're bigots.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it. And that's what's happening with the father that I love is he's sitting there and he's like, what went wrong? And it's like, what went wrong is that you were too concerned about your son being gay that you didn't even pay attention to your other son being a massive drug addict, Like, it's not rocket science to anybody who's watching from the outside. And that is sort of the point of showing them as kids and growing up is like establishing that. I still think they didn't have to spend that much time on it, but it was important to show because ultimately this movie doesn't feel like it's actually about the main son. It feels like it's more about the father.
Yeah.
And how he fucked up with these kids.
Yeah. That scene, it's interesting you bring that scene up because it's the scene where Zach has come back from Jerusalem. Yeah. It's a weird thing to say.
But where he wandered into the desert.
Yep.
Almost died. Luckily, he found a vampire, so he was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of, like, there's a couple of moments in the movie, like, where he rides his bike through the intersection or when he walks home in a blizzard. Like, there's a couple of times where he says to himself, okay, if you make it through this intersection, you won't be gay anymore. Okay, if you make it home through this blizzard, you won't be gay anymore. So, like, they do set it up when he goes and walks into the desert, because what happens is he meets a guy at a nightclub, they go home, they have sex, and then the next morning he gets up and just walks into the desert, and we can infer that it's another one of his tests for himself.
That was... I had to look this up. Is Jerusalem... Was it a gay Mecca in the 80s? Because he goes to Jerusalem, and it's like... Immediately finds this nightclub. It was that struck me as a very odd thing.
I don't know. I've never been, so I definitely didn't go in the 80s.
Yeah.
So Zach has just come home. He found the Patsy Cline record, and he comes upstairs from his bedroom to give it to his dad. Oh, he's come home from Jerusalem because Raymond OD'd on heroin, and he's in the hospital. And the whole family is back together. All the kids are grown up. They're all sleeping in the same bedroom downstairs. And Zach wakes up in the night because he hears his dad upstairs to bring him this Patsy Cline record. And he sits down to talk to his dad. And that's when his dad launches into the, I know I did something wrong. I think it's interesting because the main thing that stuck out to me about that wasn't that, like, his dad was having this moment of, like, I know something's not right and I'm to blame here, which is true. That is what he's doing in that scene. But the other thing he's doing is he's still treating the fact that Zach is gay as the problem. Like, he thinks, I caused you to be gay somehow. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
That is not what is wrong with Zach. What is wrong with Zach is he feels like he doesn't have a place in this world. And that is very much your fault. But so he gets through that whole conversation and never has that realization. And like we said earlier, his dad never has that realization. He never fully accepts that his son is gay. He, like, accepts it enough so that, like we hear at the end, like, it took 10 years, but his dad finally allowed him to, like, come over to visit with a boyfriend of his. So, but they just don't talk about it. They just don't talk about the fact that he's gay. So, but in that whole scene, like, Zach ends up never saying anything. He was going to go upstairs and attempt this reconciliation with his dad. It's like, oh, I finally found this record. But instead, his dad lays out this woe is me. Like, it's, oh, my son's on heroin and you're still gay. And I know I did something wrong. It isn't about like his.
No, it's not like again, the point goes completely over his head.
Like he's not having the epiphany. What he's having is he's feeling sorry for himself instead of, it's not an, what have I done? It's he's feeling sorry for himself. Like he doesn't have the epiphany. So his dad gets up and goes to sleep, and Zach never says anything and just leaves the record on the table. And his dad finds it the next morning and gets to listen to it and everything. But they never get to connect over the fact that he finally replaced that record. Like that, even that attempt at reconciliation is denied from them because he will just never cross that bridge with his dad. Like his dad just will not allow for that to happen. Right. So yeah, I do like that you flagged that scene though, because I think it's probably one of the best scenes in the movie for sure. At least one of the more significant scenes emotionally. But yeah, that was a really good scene.
Yeah. Also, for the record, Tel Aviv. Not terrible when it comes to like gay bars and stuff. I just looked it up because I was legitimately curious. Because I would argue in the 70s there was probably nowhere that was great. You know. That's all. Anyway. The Jerusalem stuff really is just such an abrupt, weird thing.
It's not that much of the movie either. It's like 10 minutes,
and there's like this CGI shot where it like zooms out the window.
Yeah,
and it was just like it was such a weird thing to suddenly happen in the movie.
Yeah, like I think you mentioned
and
earlier.
They barely set it up.
Right.
Like he gives his mom a book on Jerusalem at one point, and there's the Christ stuff.
Yeah, and then there's
it's so abrupt.
Well, it's the Tupperware lady. There's this woman that his mom goes to visit and will buy Tupperware from, and she's a real godbotherer. And she takes Zach to visit her when Zach is young, and this Tupperware woman is the woman who tells Zach that he has special healing powers. And she has been to Jerusalem. She's got pictures of all these places she's been. She like retraced, I think, Jesus's journey, basically. And it's like really important to her, and that connects to Zach somehow. Or so it's not like totally not set up, but it is sort of like this really nebulous, like it does still connect to the theme, but it seems a little meandering, to echo a word you said earlier.
The religious stuff in general felt meandering.
Yeah.
Because they set up this idea that he can heal people and to think of people. And I thought, like, obviously he doesn't heal people. But I thought they were going to go somewhere with that with his brother, where they sort of do it a little bit, but not enough. Not in any meaningful way. It never really pays off. And then he just goes to Jerusalem.
Yeah, it's again, just not that much of the movie. It's maybe 10 minutes. It's a real quick side trip to Jerusalem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of my issues is those moments where it's like, I feel like this didn't need to be in here. I think it was like extra ideas that they had.
It's a pilgrimage, and when he comes back, he sort of has a better understanding of himself and a better appreciation for kind of what, I don't know. It's like kind of getting Zach closer to his own epiphany.
Again, it's one of my issues with coming of age as a genre is that they are often meandering because it's usually a person talking about their own life, and they and it becomes like a little like, and then I bummed around for a while, or like it reminds me of like I haven't seen this movie in a while, but like The Razor's Edge with Bill Murray, where it's like just a guy searching for enlightenment. Oh man, it's not a bad movie. He made it right after Ghostbusters or right before, and it's a dead serious role for the most part. And it's kind of it's the Forrest Gumping of it all. Does that make sense? Where it's like, and then he did this, and then we went over and did this, and then I did this, and it's like, I'm sure this is all very important to you, but to me, I'm just looking for a story. And like Forrest Gump obviously is a better version of that. But and again, it always feels very boomer. It's just like, I want to include all the eras, all the decades. So like, I want to show you how good it is. And so like and then I went to Jerusalem feels like such a boomer thing in that it's like, well, you're like 25 and you can just jump on a plane and go to Jerusalem.
Oh, he's 20 and that he's
Jesus.
much. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's like 20, 21 in that scene.
Finding yourself and wandering in the desert is just like, keep it simple. Just like whittle it down a little. Cut 20 minutes off of this baby, and you'll be good.
That's when it's semi-autobiographical or biographical. It is a little difficult to you have trouble.
It becomes
pinning down what's important.
Yeah, like there's stuff that's important to you.
Yeah, it's all important to you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like but that's why it feels like it needs someone who isn't familiar with their life story to look at the script and go, okay, this doesn't need to be here. This doesn't need to be here. I don't know why this is here. And like, this feels like it has just those little extra pieces that like could have been shaved down, because it is like the key story of this family and of this specifically this guy's relationship with his father, very powerful. And very real, you know?
Yeah. It's not
Who plays the father?
I'm not sure.
He's some French Canadian. He looked like the guy from Titan, but he's not.
Oh, the swole fireman?
Swole fireman, yeah.
No, I don't think this is him.
No, it's not. It's super not.
Yeah,
he was in a movie called Cruising Bar.
Yeah,
the best.
Michel Cote. I'm probably screwing that up, but his Wikipedia is pretty sparse. I would need to do a deeper dive on him. No, he was. The acting
really
is quite good in this film.
Everybody kind of looks like
really
somebody.
Great.
The mom is fantastic. The main guy, he looked a lot like Andrew Garfield at times.
The whole movie, I was thinking of him as French Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I kept forgetting and being like, where do I know him from? Spider-Man. Yeah. And then I'd have to remember. Yeah.
Like, oh no, this is a really different guy. Good. Yeah, no, this very good acting. Very even though the movie itself, like the direction is heightened reality in a lot of sequences, like the actual performances are very real, which is hard to pull off.
I would argue the heightened reality in it is it doesn't happen that often, and you could argue it's all his. And you could argue it's his imagination. Like, it happens the most in church.
I don't even think you need to argue. I think it's pretty explicit that it's its imagination.
Oh, yeah. And it's also like, I don't know about you, but when I've been in church, like at a wedding or something, boy, does my mind wander. I start like looking up at the ceiling, being like, can I scale that ceiling?
Oh, yeah.
If I was like an Assassin's Creed. You start playing games.
Like, especially Catholic services, because for me anyway, they tend to go on and on and on. So it's like,
this shit's boring. And so I think they actually really do a good job at showing like the boredom of that and like where your mind wanders. And because I don't think it really happens anywhere else but church. In this movie.
I think there's maybe one other sequence, but yeah, it's mostly when he's in church. I do like how they handle when he gets into the accident, when he crashes his motorbikes. He's like, all right, if I make it to the intersection, I won't be gay anymore. And then he gets hit, and time kind of stops, and it like does this cool thing where it's like parked on his face. I'm not sure of the technical terminology for this, but the camera's not really moving, but it's like he's spinning through the intersection slow motion, and he just looks really surprised. And it's like, it really perfectly communicates that like second or two that time freezes or slows down or dilates when you're falling or when you're in the middle of having an accident, like when you trip or like when something fucked up is happening to you, and it's like you just have this look. It's really conveyed that experience perfectly for me as a person who's been in a few car accidents, had a few tumbles. It's just like, oh yeah, this feels real. Like, this is what happens. Like, you're just like, wait, am I really getting fucked up right now? Is this happening to me? Like,
who amongst us hasn't willingly driven into traffic?
Right, but you know what I mean. Like, when you're about to eat shit.
No, I know exactly.
And you're like, what? Me? I can eat shit? Nobody told me.
I told you the best thing I ever saw was my friend stage dived at an Andrew WK party, and nobody caught him. And it was the best I've ever seen someone eat shit. And he described it exactly that way. It's like this moment in the air where you're like, oh, nobody loves me.
I don't think anyone's going to catch me.
This is it. Oh, man.
It's going to look like Andrew WK's album cover in a second.
Yeah, exactly. Great album. Again, very well directed. This is a good director. Dallas Buyers Club. Didn't it win some awards?
One or two.
It's and that there's a reason why. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's I remember being very good. This is like, again, it's 2005, and it's it does feel of its time where like not much happens again. Like, for a while, I was like, is there going to be a plot? Because it's so much setup that, like, it does feel dated in that regard, I guess. Like, I feel like even family dramas and stuff tend to try to be a little more like, hey, let's have an actual, like, inciting incident, right? That happens, like, 15 minutes in, stuff like that. This doesn't really have that.
The inciting incident is his birth.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, in terms of recommending this movie, you have to be patient with it. Because I think ultimately I'm glad I watched it, and I had a really, there was a lot of really good moments and stuff. But boy, the first 40 minutes really tests your patience. Because it's not like a traditional movie. where like the stuff with him being gay in any other movie would start happening 15 minutes in. And like there's hints of it, but I mean like the actual like the drama of it, you know?
Right.
And this just sort of, it's like a slow burn.
Kind of.
You know?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It is dated. It's from 2005. That's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't feel 20 years old. In terms of like the message of it all, you know? Like that occurred to me at one point. I was like, "Oh no, I hope this isn't going to like fuck this up." Like the part where he goes to Jerusalem and goes into the desert. And like, I was like, oh no, is he going to have like an awakening and not be gay? Or are they going to do something weird with it? But they don't.
Nope.
It's just more complex than that. That's all. It's just a very human story about this. And so, yeah, it's good if you like dramas that are slow. It's a bit slow.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like he drove into traffic because he needed something to happen in the movie. Like there's a few things like that where it feels like they're like, we better have stuff happen in this movie at some point.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I don't know. You could also argue that the humans and family is the most dramatic thing there is, and we're desensitized to it because we like watching superheroes and junk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like there was an element in this movie at certain points where I was like, well, you got to entertain me, movie.
Right.
Like,
it is still supposed to be a story. But
yeah, someone throw a pie.
Crying out loud, somebody throw a pie. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I do think it's a little self-indulgent and it's a little redundant. There's a couple of things that happen multiple times, and it's like, okay, well, we really only needed to hit this once. But overall, I thought this was quite good.
Yeah,
really, not like bawling your eyes out, but really powerful in a lot of subtle ways. I definitely got a little misty a couple of times.
But I did like that it didn't feel emotionally manipulative either.
No, not at all.
It wasn't trying to make you cry. It was just telling a story.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is it's almost an anti-movie where it's like, listen, I'm just going to tell the story. You can leave if you want to.
Yeah, you can leave anytime you want to. This is the story that is being told right now.
Yeah, and I'm not going to dramatize it except for this fucking Jerusalem scene. But like, you know, like it's I appreciate it on that level. And yeah, it is emotional, but it never felt tragic, you know?
Yeah, even though Raymond does die of an overdose, it's not that kind of movie, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Like it's not about that. It's about the family relationship.
And you saw Raymond, you're like, that kid is too cool for this world.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Better to burn out than fade away.
Yeah, exactly.
Raymond's so cool.
Boy, did he. Cool Raymond.
Cool Raymond.
Doing cool heroin.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I just appreciated how subtle a lot of the movie's emotional weight is. It's a very nuanced movie in terms of the characters and their relationships and how they express how they feel about each other. I just was reminded of Raymond beating up those two guys at Christian's wedding because they're saying terrible things about Zach being gay. But Zach never sees that, and like he doesn't do it so Zach sees it happen. And it's related to what we talked about earlier.
Right, and Raymond's like kind of the fuck up in that scene too.
Yeah,
and you wonder what the dad's gonna do. Like at first you expect the dad to react because he overhears it, but the dad's like kind of constantly worried what people think, you know?
Right, and he does what he's always done, which is ignore it or doesn't talk about it. So he just pretends he doesn't hear it, you know? And that's ultimately how they have to reconcile, like how Zach has to have a relationship with his dad. I don't know, it's well done.
Yeah, it's it's not American Beauty, and that's a compliment. That's a compliment. Where American Beauty wanted to do a family story and stuff, but they went the other way with it, where it's like we had to make this like intense and weird, and everybody's acting like an alien sometimes, and this guy's in a suit for some reason. And this is more anticlimactic in a satisfying way, though, where it's telling the more realistic human version of this story of this family struggling, where it's not pretty, and it's sort of like by the end you are like, oh, okay, I'm happy for him because he finds peace with his dad at the end of the day, which is nice. But yeah, it doesn't wrap itself up in a neat little package. There's no cathartic big moment of confrontation here. It sort of just goes out with a whimper, but again, it's a satisfying whimper. It's not like it's I felt satisfied with where the story went ultimately.
Yeah,
because it does feel like it's just sort of life happening. And it's very good about that. And the characters are likable, you know? This is listed as a comedy, which is funny to me because it's not that funny.
There's funny moments in it, but yeah.
But the characters, again, they're realistic funny, where it's like situational things. Oh, the kid breaks the thing again. Isn't that funny?
Yep.
You know, where it's not like nobody's being like zany. And it's like, yeah, because it just feels very human, very realistic, very grounded. And that's good. They're like more movies like this for sure. Yeah, I got nothing else.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Good film.
Yeah, good film. I don't think it's for everyone.
Yeah,
but I think it's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. This was through our Patreon. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. If you go on there, you get access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. Those are all on there for $5 of your dollars a month. We also have tiers where you can watch movies with us, which we do every Friday night. And you can do custom We Just Watched episodes and custom podcasts. So go on there, dick around for a while. You'll love it.
Yeah, dick around on our Patreon. We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where we have a link to our Teespring store, where you can find all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So check that out if you please.
Yep.
Yeah, speed your motorbike through an intersection to check it out.
Yeah. And Google the 70s.